Let's start with night one, John. We got started with Jey Uso becoming the new world champion. He bested Gunther, and I wasn't surprised that Jey won. I was surprised that it happened by tap out. I've heard Tony Schiavone before say that he feels like the War Games match that was made famous by Dusty Rhodes and the NWA and later WCW. He felt like it was a missed opportunity to eliminate or rather focus on the submission because he thinks it maybe hurts the anticipation a little bit. And that didn't really make sense for me, but I think I got it watching Jey Uso win. I think that crowd was ready for Jey to win, and the anticipation of 1, 2, that builds. So we're all sort of ready for either the kick out or when this hand hits, man, we got a new champion. You don't really get that anticipation with the tap out. Would the pop and reaction have been bigger if it was a pinfall rather than a submission? What say you?
Maybe, but it may not be what's best for business down the road. You know, if what the crowd is telling you that, hey, we're going to pop more off a pinfall and submission, maybe you should give it to them, but maybe you shouldn't let them lead you. You know, that's an alternative to it. And I don't know what the correct answer is. So I'm not saying one is the correct answer and one is not. But sometimes you do things like this because you want to open up the fact that people are going into a sleeper forever. And the crowd kind of pops, but then they kind of expect to go, oh, you're gonna cheer and you're going to bring them back and go into something else. Well, now all of a sudden it works. And I think that changes the dynamic. And it adds something to the repertoire of Jey Uso. I think long-term it could be good. I think we'll find out. I mean, I don't think it'll be definitive, but I think we'll know down the line if they do something with it, because now you have something viable that is an alternative to just the 1-2 kick out, 1-2 kick out, finally 1-2-3 yay.
It's interesting to see what they're going to do next, at least to me, because I've seen some people who were critical of this match even before it happened. People have decided, hey, all of a sudden we don't like Jey Uso. I don't really understand that. The crowd was really with it. But I guess the next question is, if you were booking, would you go right back to rematches with Gunther and Jey Uso, or is it time for both guys to move on? And if that's the answer, what might that look like if it were up to you?
I'd separate them. I definitely would separate them, at least for the time being. You always can come back to it. That's a hot angle that will be there. I say always. It's going to be there for the foreseeable future, which is a year to 2 years down the road. So I think I would separate them here and let Jey Uso kind of go on his own and let him yeet and all this stuff. You know, it's the dog that caught the car. You know, the fans, they tell you, we want this guy, we want this guy, we want this guy. And all of a sudden they get him and they're like, nah, we don't want him. You know, and so I get it. You see that a lot. And sometimes it buries a guy when they finally get over the hump, get to the hump and cross it over, and they get what the fans claim they want, and they change their mind. They don't want it. I think Jay's going to be fine. That kid is unbelievably talented, and he is that good. I've seen them since they first came in. I can't tell you what a big fan I am of him and his brother. I think he's going to be just as fantastic going forward as he has been for the past year.
Let's talk a little bit about the New Day. They were out next, and they are the tag team champions again, besting the War Raiders. I, for one, am a big fan of seeing New Day win the titles as a heel tag team. And maybe it's wishful thinking, but I sure do hope at some point during this reign we see a little bit of involvement one way or another from Big E. What do you think of this match, and what do you think about the prospects of a heel New Day tag team run?
I got to work with them when I went back for the one little shot there with backstage with them. I've worked with those guys ever since they've come in, and they're fantastic. It is so good to be out there with guys that are such professionals. Not that you have to worry about what they're going to do, that you actually have to worry that you're good enough to keep up with them, because they're literally that good. The stuff they've done, they came in and they didn't get over, and they didn't get over because they were done wrong. I say done wrong. They were given the wrong everything. Promos, you understand the old Southern evangelist, and that's how you write a lot of the promos that were like this, like Dr. King talked about, like Billy Graham talked about. Everything would lead to one thing or another. The river overflows the banks flows into the city, that's righteousness. It goes over, it's always a lead and a progression. They weren't writing that. They were writing just certain phrases, but they were very disjointed. And they finally let New Day do their own stuff. And when they did, those guys got over because they're talented, But what you had a bunch of writers who, no fault of their own, could not write for them. And now that you've got these guys, either writers that understand them or that work with them, they're writing their own stuff. I know at one point at that time, because when I was there, they were writing a lot of their stuff in coordination. They got together with the writers, and it really made a complete difference. And so I've seen them get over, and I love them, those guys as heels. I think Big E coming back is going to be huge when he does, and I'm sure he will. I say not come back and wrestle, but come back and be part of the storyline.
That's right. Yeah, I don't think he necessarily has to have, bell-to-bell matches, but just his mere involvement in a match could be big. And, conventional wisdom does say that's going to happen.
Those guys are chicken shit heels. They are the definition of guys you just hate. It's so refreshing to see guys like that. There's nothing about them that's redeemable. You hate everything about them. I love to have guys like that on the roster, especially ones that are talented as those guys.
How great was it, too, that when they won, they just ran right up the ramp? I mean, just hightail it out of Dodge. It's old school. I love it. And I have to admit, I'm going to follow my sword here. In my mind, Jade Cargill and Naomi would be the popcorn match. This would be a great time to make a sandwich. I mean, I was not high on this going in. I was wrong. These ladies exceeded expectations, and I thought it was one of the best matches of the night. I don't know why I didn't have higher hopes for it. I just did not. But, man, I was proven wrong. I was thoroughly impressed and saw some things in this match I'd never seen before. What did you think of these two ladies? I thought they tore it up, John.
I thought they absolutely tore it up. And I've kind of come to a realization after watching WrestleMania about how the business has transformed as compared to how it was during our day. It's kind of become more crystallized in my mind about how they use agents so much more. And it's different. It's not that one is working and one is not working. It's Ricky Steamboat and Savage having number system for their matches back 40 years ago. They did it too. And it was a great match. It doesn't matter how you get there. What matters is what you deliver. And they absolutely delivered. And a lot of matches delivered. Now, I'm not picking on that match alone, but the agents work so well with these great talent, and they're so athletic. Those two ladies are incredible athletes. We haven't seen anything like that maybe ever with those two guys. But when you give these agents together and the WWE machine, you're putting together these matches that are just absolutely fantastic. And, some of the old guys will say, well, that's not working. Look, Savage and Steamboat did the same thing. They numbered it. They actually had numbers. It doesn't matter. All that matters is, does the crowd love it? And the crowd loved that. And I agree with you. I thought it stole the show.
Man, I won't make that mistake again. I underestimated them. Let's talk about the next match. We've got Jacob Fatu. He got a win over LA Knight. He's the new U.S. champion. This is the same trajectory we saw John Cena once upon a time. Of course, he famously beat Big Show at WrestleMania for the U.S. title. And then the next year, he was working with you for the world title. Do you expect a similar trajectory for Jacob Fatu? I mean, what is his ceiling? What is his peak, do you think?
Yeah, I just hope it's not the same trajectory where he's working with me, because he might hurt me.
That's a fair statement. I guess everybody now wants to wonder, though, what's next for LA Knight? A couple of years ago, I could have seen if he's losing the U.S. title, maybe they're getting ready for the world title. Do you think that's still in the cards, or will LA Knight's career take a different turn next?
I think there's going to be a lot of places he can go here. I think he's going to get the keys to the car, and I think it's going to be up to him. And he's done a very good job, and I think he'll do well going forward. Some of the stuff he did where he hops on the top rope, I mean, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm saying it in a very good way. He's in his early 40s. Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, when I was in my early 40s, they acted like you were 70. It was like, oh my God, he's old. These guys now, because they take care of themselves so well, 40 doesn't matter anymore. That age doesn't matter anymore. I think he's a fantastic athlete, and I think he'll be just fine. I think he's going to get the keys to the car, and they're going to have options of where he can go, and I think he's going to excel like he's done everywhere else. Jacob Fatu, to me, is the guy that they want to send to the moon. And I have a feeling he's going to be up there with Buzz Aldrin, because that son of a bitch is good. He good, as Booker would say. When Booker is awake, now when Booker's asleep, he doesn't say anything because he's asleep.
Well, no. When Booker's praying, he doesn't pray out.
It is Easter weekend.
Hey, we're talking a little bit about Jacob Fatu. Of course, he was a big part of the bloodline story there at the end. But I think a lot of people were sort of reeling in the idea that the bloodline story seems to be put to bed. I mean, we've even heard Michael Cole sort of say that, hey, everyone's sort of gone their own way. Of course, that does give the opportunity for there to be reunions and continuations of that storyline down the road. But I can't help but see what's happening with Jacob Fatu and wonder, if he wasn't here, would that have been Solo's spot? I mean, Solo found himself without even a WrestleMania match. You've been there or in the business and in this company for a long time, where it feels like everything is destined for one person, and then there's some sort of a pivot. I think that's the popular word online.
How great was, Hunter answered the question about the word pivot. Like, we screwed up. We don't want to pivot. I think that was a terrific answer, because people love to say that, oh, we just need to pivot. That means you had the wrong damn thing planned, is what that means.
Well, I'm wondering, what do you think is next for Solo? And do you feel bad? Do you feel like, man, Jacob Fatu is just undeniable, and he swooped in, and maybe that was Solo's spot once upon a time?
It could have been. Absolutely could have been. I mean, you have a guy come in, Jacob Fatu. I mean, look, you and I have been either wrestling fans or in this business for a very, very long time. You don't have a guy come on like Jacob Fatu very often.
That's right.
He's once in a generation guy that comes along. It's shocking how good he is. And it may have been Solo's spot. I don't know. But all of a sudden, Jacob Fatu comes in, and you're like, we got to make way for this. Doesn't mean that Solo doesn't get his chance, but it means that Jacob Fatu goes to the front of the line, not just in front of Solo, but in front of a lot of people. I mean, because he's that good. He really is that good. I see him, in the main event of WrestleMania. I don't know, next year or the next year, he's going to be there, I think. Unless an injury happens or whatever could possibly happen, but he should be there. He's that freaking good. And the bloodline, to me, you don't want to NWO it. And I'm not taking a shot at the NWO. Greatest storyline probably in the history of wrestling, that or Mr. McMahon. I think one of the two was probably the greatest storyline ever. But then all of a sudden, Virgil's in it, and you overdo it. You don't want to do that with the bloodline. It was too good, and these guys are all still there. And if you want to reform it, I think you can, but you don't want to water it down.
A lot of people were talking about this one in advance of the show. There was lots of rumor and innuendo that these ladies didn't like each other. And, well, man, we fans, we love the idea of saying, I know what wrestling is, but this was real. A lot of people were pointing to this one and saying, oh, did you see the bruises on Stephanie or on Tiffany? And she was bleeding from the mouth. And was that supposed to happen? Well, whatever you want to call it, Tiffany Stratton is your new women's champion. She retains with a big win over Charlotte Flair. Of course, I guess Charlotte had sort of poked the bear in this regard and saying, hey, he didn't really win it. It was a cash in. Well, if there was any question as to whether or not Tiffany was a bona fide WWE superstar, well, beating Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, that'll go a long way. What'd you think of this one, John?
I thought what you said is all true. And I thought when you become a champion, sometimes you got to walk through hell to become a true champion that's more than just somebody that's holding the title. And that's a big difference. A champion that kind of starts to transcend the sport, to transcend the genre. You look at it, Brett and Steve, that match they had, that was about Steve going through hell. And once Steve got through that, it wasn't just about, double turn. It was about showing that Steve could hang with a guy as good as Bret Hart. That's very important. Triple H talking about Mick Foley in the Hall of Fame. That's about the aristocrat Hunter, the blue blood, showing that he can hang with this hardcore legend. You got to have matches like this. I thought the same thing when I had John Cena in the I Quit match. That was the importance of that match. That match was more important than WrestleMania putting the title on him, showing that he could walk through hell. Tiffany had to show that she could walk through hell against a Flair, one of the greatest of all time. And she's, you talk about the Mount Rushmore of women, Charlotte's on everybody's Mount Rushmore, but she walked through hell. And because of that, now she can hold up that title. It completely changed the way people will view her as a champion, because no longer is she the one that cashed in. She's the one that walked through hell with the legend and came out the other side with the title. That was a very important match.
It was a big match to make her and solidify her. And I'm seeing some comments even live here saying that, oh, Tiffany wound up with a chipped tooth. That's not the case. She had blood in her teeth. So that's what you believe made it a chipped tooth. But I saw some people who said, no, she chipped the tooth during the match and it was fixed by the time the post-match press conference happened.
Yeah, because they have a dentist in the back.
I know Kane was in town, but I don't think he was doing dental repair. But there is a wrestling dentist out there, but we'll move on. We should mention the next match is one.
But hey, Conrad, first, people still love blurring the line.
Yes, they do.
You know, people still love it. Now, I get all this, and I've seen the comments, you know, people are talking about, you know, the kayfabe and non-kayfabe. I don't give a shit about any of that. People still love blurring the line and wanting to know that there could be an element of danger, that there might be some personal animosity. You know, there's always that it doesn't mean you're not discussing stuff. I don't care about none of that. They're drawing enormous crowds. They're doing something right. But people still love the intrigue of, hey, that milk bottle trick by Houdini. He might could die, couldn't he? You don't know for sure. And that's cool.
Super fun match. And the main event is what everybody was talking about on night one. I saw people describing the three-way dance with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman and CM Punk and Roman Reigns as cinema. And I thought it was an interesting lesson. I even suggested when I sort of talked about this with Jeff Jarrett a couple of days ago, it feels like the later in the card or the higher up the card you go, the more you're going to slow down because they took their time telling this story. And I thought that was what was so fascinating about it is, you know, a lot of times, you know, the modern style of wrestling requires a lot of speed. I mean, it is nonstop, and that is the world we live in. But in the main event, they made every little thing count, including Paul Heyman turning once on we felt like he was turning on Roman Reigns to side with CM Punk. And then we find out, well, that's not the total plan. He left with Seth Rollins. What a finish. I'm hoping that we get some sort of answers tonight on Monday Night Raw. We didn't hear from anybody at the post-WrestleMania press conference. What do you think of this main event? It was a big deal for CM Punk. They let him come out last. They had the appropriate video package. It felt like a major happening. It felt like a major event. And there wasn't even a world title on the line. What do you think of this main event from night one?
Yeah, you know, it reminds me so much of, you know, guys talking about Johnny Valentine or Lou Thez, you know, how Lou Thez would walk through the building, through the box office so that fans would see him. He'd walk through in a really nice suit and people go, oh my God, that's the world champion. You know, you'd feel that. Johnny Valentine was the same way. You know, there are certain people that would walk in and you just felt like, oh geez, that's the freaking world champion. They walked out in this match like they were the main event of WrestleMania, that like they belonged there, and they did. When you're over like that, you can start slower. You can do things that you can't do when you're on the third match, not because you physically can't do it, but because your presence isn't enough. They have so much equity in themselves from 20 years in the business of huge matches that they could walk out and do that. And not many other people could do it. And I thought it was incredibly well done. I thought the whole thing was great. And shout out to Blue Meanie, by the way, who were on last week. And he's the one that first said, what if Paul Heyman goes with Seth Rollins?
Yeah, I think we did a poll, and I think most people could predict and call that it was going to be Seth Rollins. But I think a lot of people assumed that, you know, considering Seth had used the same phrasing that we had heard John Cena and The Rock use, best for business, that may be where it was headed. We'll see where it goes from here. I kind of felt like it was the only logical place for Paul Heyman to go because it's hard for me to imagine him being a babyface mouthpiece. It feels like you want Paul Heyman, and he would almost be miscast as a babyface. You want him to be a heel. And clearly at this point, Roman and CM Punk are darlings in WWE fan bases. So Seth Rollins is the only logical answer in that. Would you have done it differently, or do you think they made the right call?
Nope. I thought we talked about it the past week that Seth Rollins was the right choice. I thought that was the way. That was 100% the way I would go. I thought it made the most sense. Paul Heyman, I think, is a separate issue. But if you want to put a fresh coat of paint on Paul, which is really hard to do after 30, 40 years in the business of being constantly in main events, All of a sudden now Paul Heyman is just as rejuvenated as ever. Not that he wasn't before. He was. He's always been in main events, always been with one world champion after another. He's got the greatest run of a manager in the history of the world. And he's done it again. And he's on fire again with a new guy that went over 2 incredible legends. And so I thought it was perfect.
Speaking of legends, we saw some sad news on Friday night. It looks like Rey Mysterio was injured on SmackDown, and he was unable to compete against El Grande Americano. And instead, Rey Fénix stepped up to the plate. And to my surprise, whoever this masked man El Grande Americano is, he picked up the win. And I even saw some speculation, and I don't know this. I don't think his identity has been revealed, but I saw some people suggesting that whoever's under this hood could be potentially doing a Mr. America type gimmick. Like we saw once upon a time, Hulk Hogan paraded around under a hood, but we knew it was Hulk Hogan. Do you think that was Vince McMahon under the hood and he really was at WrestleMania, John?
I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah. Not at all. I would not put it past him at all. He found a way in, and you knew he would. You knew he would not go quietly into the night. I don't think there's much doubt that could have been and probably was Vince McMahon.
Of course, the big news, in all seriousness, with regard to Lucha Libre was the idea that WWE has acquired AAA. And listen, when you first started showing up south of the border, this was the speculation that you were Hunter's low-key talent scout. And we've seen you in TNA, and then Joe Hendry was at WrestleMania. We've seen you at AAA, and now they're owned by WWE. Where are you headed next? And what can you tell us about your secret undercover work you've been doing for WWE?
Because apparently I'm a double secret agent. I'm so double secret I don't even know about it. So that's how much double secret I am. I'm excited about them with AAA. I think it's great. That Viking Del Hijo, I think that's how you say his name. I watched him have a match down there with the Del Rio. That kid is freaking amazing. They're getting some talent, man. This is unbelievable. And I always thought that WWE should have done this maybe back in the day, where you acquire a territory like Mexico that is completely different, that wants their own culture and wants their own heritage and wants their own history, but wants to be a part also. Not where you WWE it, where you buy Georgia Championship Wrestling and you turn it into WWE South, but where you buy it and you have a WWE influx into it, but you leave the culture and heritage the same with Lucha Libre. I think it's a fantastic partnership. Dorian has done an incredible job down there. Conan is a terrific booker, and I'm very excited about it. And I've said a couple times that I think Del Rio is the best wrestler in the world. And I know people took me to task on that, but look, I've watched him, and it's my opinion, but that guy draws interest like no one I've seen down there. He's better than he's ever been. And it's really amazing what he's doing down there.
Let's talk about night 2 of WrestleMania. We started off with the 3-way dance for the women's title. Io Sky retains. She beats Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair in the process. I saw CM Punk in advance of WrestleMania weekend actually advocating that this should have actually been the main event. Rhea's never had a WrestleMania main event. And he said, when will Io Sky be in this position again? I think at the time, people sort of thought, I can't imagine that being the main event. With the benefit of hindsight, it might have actually been one of the best matches of the night, maybe the best match of the night. The ladies tore it up again, John.
Yeah, if I'm on last, I'm glad they're on first. Yes. I don't want them on 6th and me on 7th, because they stole the freaking show. And how big for Io Sky? I had Rhea win it. I thought they would probably put the title on her, but everything's about her. Terrific. And the match was absolutely blown away fantastic. You got to love stuff like this. And you got to love the future that we're going to get, because we realize what we have. And I don't know. I'm sure WWE knew what they had. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about we as fans. I'm a fan like everybody else. We have this, and now we got a future that we're like, God Almighty, I want to see this again, because that was that good.
We saw over the weekend fans who work on cagematch.net. I say work on because you have to register in order to be able to vote and rank matches and things like that. On the entire weekend, between both nights, The three-way dance from the women on night 2 was the highest rated match amongst fans. And I don't think I would have pegged that ahead of time, but man, they stole it. Shout out to the ladies. 2 nights in a row, I feel like they maybe had the best match of the night.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's something that the business is so big now. But one of the reasons that you're drawing extra fans is because you have double the roster. But I say double the roster, not just the guys, you have the ladies. Back in the 90s, we had terrifically talented women, beautiful women. They weren't trained to wrestle. Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler were terrific athletes. They could have been great wrestlers. They weren't trained for that. That wasn't what they wanted them for the role. Now you've got the women that are just as many as there are men, as it should be, and it should have been all along. And they're equal in every respect and better. When they're better, they're better. There's no glass ceiling anymore. So when the women excel, it's okay. They beat the guys. Good for them. If the guys win this time, good for them. You actually have given a level playing field. And because of that, I think that's really added to the appeal of wrestling. You see it in MMA. You're seeing it in other sports. We're just behind the curve. The society was behind the curve. And it's catching up, which is a good thing. And you realize how talented these women are, which, we knew all along. They just didn't have the role that was able to show that.
We got to mention the next match on the show was one that, again, I thought, I don't know if fans are really going to be with this, but I thought it delivered. I'm talking about Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest. In an alternate universe, this one could have been for the world title that Jey Uso and Gunther were fighting for. We did this as a Sin City street fight. They went 13 minutes and 54 seconds. I thought Damian Priest may have actually needed the win more, but that's not the way they went. Drew McIntyre is the man besting Damian Priest. Were you shocked with the finish? And what do you think is next for both guys here, John?
I wasn't. I thought they'd go with Drew because you always need this raw bone heel, this badass heel that really wants to be just a tough old guy. And that's what Drew McIntyre is. He really is a tough old guy. He's a big guy, and he plays the character so well. You need a guy like that. You need a menacing, big heel. And I think that's what you got with Drew. So it made perfect sense to me that the finish.
Let's talk a little bit about the four-way that I think caught everybody off guard. I'm talking about Dominic Mysterio becoming the Intercontinental Champion, beating Braun Breaker, Finn Balor, and Penta in the process. They went 10.5 minutes. Dominic Mysterio was your call going into this. You thought the move was make him the champ and let him be a chicken shit heel and never defend it. I loved it when you laid it out. What I did not anticipate is that he might get the biggest pop of the night. The place exploded for him, and this is a place that not that long ago, anytime he lifted the microphone to his mouth, they just bombed him with boos. That's not what happened this weekend. What'd you think? Were you surprised that he got the big baby face reaction winning the
No, absolutely not. No, fans are just showing their appreciation. Fans, I don't think fans care. It's hard to get real heat. I think Dominic does get real heat. But at some point, the fans are like, man, he has entertained me. He's made me boo him. He has made me get so freaking mad. I love that guy. And that's what I felt it was. I thought it was just an appreciation of everything he's done. I mean, he has been such a good heel. Just one of the best heels I've seen in decades. And throughout this whole thing, I think the fans looked at it and go, man, that was the right choice. We're going to hate him tomorrow, but he's our guy today. And I felt like that's what it was. I feel like they're going to boo him tomorrow. They may cheer him. It may go for a while where you cheer. Who cares? I'm with Kevin Nash on this. I think you need just pure heels, which is what I was, but you also need attraction heels, which the NWO was, which the Freebirds were, which the Roman Reigns is. I mean, those guys headline WrestleMania just as much as the pure heels, and the pure heels usually don't stay around that long. I prefer to be a pure heel, but the attraction heel, I'm with Kevin on this one. If they're all feel a certain way about you, whatever that is, they hate you, they love you, but everybody has an opinion. That's pretty good. And I think Dominic may be moving into that role.
It's interesting to see what they're going to do from here. I couldn't help but notice, as we predicted, they did pin Finn Balor. Maybe that has some Judgment Day connective tissue for Dom. Maybe that's what's next. but they were careful not to have Braun Breaker take the pin or the new shiny object in WWE, Penta. A lot of people are suspecting that, just like we talked about Jacob Fatu maybe being in the main events in the years to come. I think they think Braun Breaker may be cut from that same cloth. Would you look for Braun to have some rematches, or is it time for him to go his separate way and move up?
Nope. I would not put Dom back with Dominic or any of those guys. I think they've got higher aspirations talking about for the world title picture, for the main event picture. And I think that's where they want. That's why they want to head in that direction. Finn Balor, listen, buddy, you're too good. Yeah. That's why they beat you, because they know that you can get beat and it doesn't hurt you. And the other guys they're not in that boat. Finn Balor is that good. He looks great. He's a great worker. And unfortunately, when you're a great worker, you get beat a lot. Triple H had a losing record at WrestleMania because he was such a great worker. Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, was not undefeated at WrestleMania because he was such a good worker. People don't remember that because they were such great workers. Same thing with Finn Balor. That's why you beat a guy like Finn Balor, because it's not going to hurt him. And as crazy as that sounds, it's because he's that good. And I think you're taking Braun to try to go to a different level with Braun. And I think you're elevating everybody in that match. You're elevating Dominic to a different level. You're elevating Penta, I believe, after this, and Braun. And Finn is to me, was the one guy they knew that was the mechanic that could get it done.
Double J, Jeff Jarrett, here to tell you a little bit about the nonstop savings happening over here at SaveWithConrad.com. Are high credit card balances holding you down on the card? If you're looking to give a guitar shot to your credit card debt, or give your home the push it deserves with some upgrades and remodeling, you need to go to SaveWithConrad.com. That's right, SaveWithConrad.com. Conrad and his team are routinely helping My World listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. Oh, did I mention you get to skip your next 2 house payments? Take a cue from The Last Outlaw, because if anybody knows how to get the bag, it's me. Strut on over to SaveWithConrad.com today and see how much money you can save for free. That's right, it's SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com. So let's talk about the next match here, because this is one that I know you're going to be interested in. We sort of teased it a moment ago. You've been in and around TNA enough to know Joe Hendry's game. I don't think a lot of people suspected that he would be the person to answer Randy Orton's open challenge. It was Randy's 20th anniversary. I had suggested in a pre-show with Jeff Jarrett, maybe it's going to be Sami Zayn. There was a lot of speculation that, hey, it could be Rusev. And nobody really knew what to expect, but Joe Hendry got the call as the TNA World Champion. Quite a reaction, quite a reception. We see he's sporting the merch. I'm sure that's going to fly off the shelves. But it only took 3 minutes and 10 seconds for Randy Orton to pin him. And I know that wrestling isn't what it once was. And, we've sort of thrown out the old rule book. But the idea that you've got your world champion losing in 3 minutes like this, I don't know. What did you make of this?
Also, but it's Randy Orton also.
That's true.
This isn't a normal person. It's not a normal anything. Randy may be the guy that ends up, breaking Cena's record of 17. He certainly could. Randy looks better now than he's ever looked after 20 years. I was glad it wasn't Nick Aldis, by the way. I think Nick's got an incredible look. I said this last week. Nick looks like a 1932 NWA champion, which I consider a huge compliment. He just looks like an old throwback, of what you think a world champion looks like. And I didn't want to see him come out there with people not knowing how good he can wrestle. I know a lot of his fans know him, but a lot of WWE fans do not, as far as his wrestling background and how good he is. And so I was glad it wasn't Nick, because I'd like, if Nick does come back, I don't have no idea if he is or isn't. I'd like to see him in a different spot, and where he can showcase more and not be out there with a guy like Randy, who obviously they got huge plans for Randy, massive plans for Randy. So they're going somewhere with him. That's a bad spot to be in opposite Randy right there, because that's a lot about Randy. I thought Joe did well, and no caveat to it. I thought he did well, and he got his name out there, got all his stuff out here that he does that goes viral, and was a good little spot for him.
You said obviously they have big plans for Randy. I mean, I know you're not necessarily heading up creative over there, but would you think that means he may be working with Jey Uso or Jacob Fatu or Dominic Mysterio, or what is Randy going to do next from here, do you think?
You're in a bind with Randy because he's that good. You've got to put him, in my opinion, almost in a world title picture. It's hard to put him in anything else. He's that good, and he looks so freaking good. I mean, Randy has transformed himself from just a few years ago into this incredible presence. He's got his body so freaking big. He looks so freaking good. He's a huge man. I mean, Randy's what a world champion looks like. I say it all the time. Build a sports entertainer from the ground up, it looks like Randy Orton. That is exactly what it looks like. So there's not much you can do with him except put him in main event pictures. But that's a good thing because he's going to draw. And I don't know where you go with it. I don't know if you go with him and Cena, which would be great. End up somehow that direction. I don't know if you end up with him and Jey Uso, which I think could be absolutely fantastic. But either one of those to me it would be great. Jacob Fatu would be good. I think something with Dominic. But the problem is Dominic would have to be a heel to get out of it. It'd be kind of a tough match. But there's quite a few options with Randy.
Randy Orton and John Cena. It's got to happen one last time.
It has to. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Something that some of us are still trying to make heads or tails of is Logan Paul and AJ Styles. They went 17 minutes and 43 seconds. They're incredible athletes. They had an interesting story. We saw Logan Paul's manager, Jeff, get involved again, seemingly trying to use the brass knucks. Here comes Karrion Kross after getting a big reaction on the SmackDown show during the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I liked that this maybe gave us the quote-unquote worked shoot promo that we heard from Karrion Kross after the show. Blurring the lines like that and having sort of a pipe bomb moment like that, I think is exactly what Karrion Kross needed. But I don't know that this is what I wanted for AJ Styles' last WrestleMania. But maybe that's part of the story that, that is going to be a big part of what Karrion and AJ are doing on the other side. When it was happening, I didn't like it. Now that I've seen the promo from Karrion Kross, I'm back in. What say you?
Was this AJ's last WrestleMania?
Well, that's the hint that Karrion has been saying. Hey, if that was your last WrestleMania, is that the way you wanted it to finish?
Right.
I knew it wasn't the right thing, but sometimes you have to do the wrong thing in order to make things right. I thought, wow, I really like giving Karrion this opportunity. I wish it would have happened on TV, but still, I hope that this leads to a summer with Karrion Kross and AJ Styles doing something. Sign me up for that. I don't know that I would have been on board with it without that promo, though. And now having seen it, well, I'm back in. What'd you think of Logan Paul besting AJ here?
I thought that would happen. I really did. Logan Paul, I mean, look, you can say whatever you want about social media presence and Travis Scott and these guys that come in, but I mean, there's a reason that Logan and Jake Paul are going to make tens of millions of dollars off their YouTube channel by doing stuff athletically. For one, they're incredible athletes. I'm talking about both of them. Logan is an incredible athlete, but their presence is they draw. I mean, they just draw. And so when you got a guy like that, you say, do they deserve to be there? Hell yeah, they deserve to be there. If you got guys that draw better than them, they won't be there. And so, yes, I think they deserve to be there. And I think he does an incredible job. He's the best wrestler I've ever seen that has wrestled as few times as he's wrestled. He is such a good athlete. Now he's out there with a world-class guy in AJ Styles. AJ Styles could make anybody look good. But Logan Paul does his part. And I thought that was probably the way to go was with Logan Paul. You're going to do something big with him in the future. I don't know what that is, but there's going to be something that's going to be huge with Logan Paul in the future because of what he does outside of just wrestling. He is a huge name. And in my opinion, WWE is very lucky to have him.
We got to talk about the women's tag match. We saw an angle develop where it looked like Bayley was going to be injured and unable to compete. As I understand it, the general manager said that, she had 24 hours, Lyra did, to find a suitable tag team partner. Well, she found one. Becky Lynch is back, and Big Time Bex is now one half of the tag team champions with Lyra. She's been out of WWE for over a year now. But she's back now and immediately back in the title situation. Of course, it's 2-belt Lyra, I guess, as the Intercontinental Champion and the Tag Champ. I like Becky working in a tag capacity here. And what a big return. What a big surprise. But if I'm honest, I hate it for Bayley because I don't think Bayley is injured. And it's just one of those things, maybe like the Solo Jacob thing. Hey, we had plans, but this presented itself and we're going to go that direction. What'd you think of Becky's return and what's next for Bayley in all this?
Like Bayley is one of those people, and we talk about these with a lot of different people. We talk about this with AJ Styles. We talk about this with Finn Balor. You know, Dolph Ziggler we talked about before was in the same boat. Bayley is so talented that she can do so much that she doesn't get hurt by a lot of this. And sometimes when that happens, it's almost as I don't know, take advantage of, but you step aside because you know that you're going to be fine going down the road. Not that Becky Lynch isn't as well. But that's kind of, but when you're that good like Bayley and you have such a presence, it's almost very repetitive when you have these great stars that's can end up happening to them at times. I think Bayley's going to be fine. She's incredibly talented. She is just fantastic. Everything she's done, when she was Hugga Bayley to when she was heel Bayley, everything she's done has been great. And Becky Lynch is the same. I think it was a terrific return. And I thought with Bayley, she's going to be perfectly fine.
I for one, am excited that Becky Lynch is back, but I think we both agree that the best gear of the weekend was Liv Morgan. Do you think you could have pulled off the Liv Morgan gear at the peak of your career, John?
Not at any moment at all. No moment whatsoever. I remember when Jordan Grace and some other of the divas were down in Cabo or something, and they did some shoot from behind on a pool. And I said, why didn't the APA and the Dudleys do that? And probably because we'd been arrested and people would have shot us.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people wanted to shoot the TV when they saw the final curtain fall on night 2. People were not happy with John Cena beating Cody Rhodes to win the world title. I don't think it's necessarily the idea that John won the world title. It's maybe how it happened. I, for one, thought they did a pretty good job with this story. I know that, we've both been critical of the build at first, but I think they got there by the end. I loved Cody's go home promo on SmackDown. I loved when they didn't do the bright, colorful entrance for John Cena, just all black and white letters. That was fantastic. They still got the merch plug. The camera followed him down from behind as he plugged the towel, and certainly he was dripping in John Cena gear, just not the neon Fruity Pebble stuff, all black like a bad guy should. And I thought he and Cody had a fine match. And then after the second ref bump, or maybe the first ref bump, we saw Travis Scott make his way to the ring. And it took for freaking ever. And I felt like it took more than a suspension of disbelief to imagine that Cody and John Cena just sat there. I think Travis maybe put them in a bad spot. And it feels like fans online, even though they understand that, hey, Travis has more Instagram followers than WWE. I mean, Travis had a doggone meal at McDonald's. He had like 11 billion streams on Spotify last year. There's no doubt this is an accomplished guy with a huge social media following. But I think wrestling fans would have liked for there to have been a larger emphasis on the historical significance of this being John Cena's last WrestleMania, him beating Ric Flair's record. Now he's a 17-time world champion. And I think a lot of people feel disappointed that The Rock wasn't there. It feels like this whole story revolved around The Rock, and he wasn't there. Fans are rightfully upset, I think. I've heard reports that there was booing nonstop, even after the cameras stopped. And fans even sort of waited around thinking, well, is something else going to happen? They were really expecting The Rock to be there. What'd you think of the main event and Travis Scott's involvement and maybe The Rock's lack of involvement?
I think they all need to call a wambulance. Dial 911 is what they need to do. Look, Skandar Akbar used to always tell me we'd leave a spot show and people were mad and wanting to riot, and wanting to kill us for leaving the Von Erich boys down or whatever we did. We left them just like they love to be left. They're miserable. And sometimes that's what you do. If you're booking it like the fans want to book it, you're going to have a feel-good moment. Now, I'm not taking shots at the fans. I'm just telling you what my perspective of the business. And you're going to book this hot shot moment. You're going to have The Rock come down. You're going to have the glass break. You're going to have all this stuff happen. Everybody's going to go, oh, man. And all of a sudden, Cena's going to get that 17-time world champion. Everybody's going to stand up and cheer. You're going, all right, man, that's fantastic. That's not episodic. That's a culmination. That's a final, is what that is. That's a finale. It's tough to follow that. Instead, you do something where fans are pissed off. That's the wrestling business. And now they're going to. I had a fan tell me one time, Killer Tim Brooks can't wrestle at all. I hate that guy. I said, would you pay to see Stan Hansen come in to wrestle him? And he goes, oh my God, I'd pay double. I go, you're right. He can't work at all.
Yes.
That's, to me, how you leave the fans. And that's a hard thing to do. But that, in my opinion, is how they were trying to leave him. And I thought they did. And now, if you want to bring The Rock in, now if you want to put the bells and whistles, now it becomes different. You want to make Cena into a heel, not this celebrated 17-time world champion that's the greatest of all time and all the accolades that should go with him. You don't want that. You want people mad that this guy won. And that's what happened. So I thought that I thought the finish was actually pretty good.